Party, and it's the Suicide Squad. Um, and we have finally a new picture, and this picture looks, you know, from the same movie like the other pictures we saw, but it's from a different angle. It's a cool picture. We see Harley Quinn, we see Peacemaker, Thinker, Bloodsport, and Rick Flag. Um, but there's also one new controversy because it's James Gunn and everyone is James Gunn, so there has to be someone who's fighting him and stuff like that, right? Look,
Wait, there's a controversy in
yeah,
DC?
something new,
Oh
right?
man. Huh.
So yeah, the director James Gunn, he as usual was replying to people on Twitter, and someone asked him, "Will Superman have anything to do with your movie?" And he replied, "Bloodsport is in prison for taking him down with a kryptonite bullet. If you believe these covers, okay, so that's just him referring to the original tweet. So he killed Superman or just tried to? Was another question, and he replied he put him in the ICU, but he failed to kill him. Okay, so firstly, looking at this and coming from seeing that it's coming from James Gunn, there is a high possibility that he's just joking, and is just trolling, like he kind of does from time to time. But also, it could be true, like you don't actually have to show Superman in the ICU for this to actually exist in that movie. You can just have Bloodsport say it. Now, whether that's true or not, again, that depends on depends on you whether to believe it when he says it. So there's also another layer to that. So it could be in the movie. He could say that to someone, but that could also not be true, right? So I what I think of this, I didn't know that this was already a pre-existing thing in the comics. So I was kind of taken aback by that comment that Superman is in the ICU. That's like Thanos getting arrested by the police. That stuff only happens in the comics. So it makes sense when I saw that comic book art from one of the comics. But for the movie, like I said, I don't think they need to show that. You can just say it, and it's definitely going to have some jokes. And this movie is it's going to be weird and have weird stuff in it. So this is just another thing to add to it. I'm excited to see this movie because it's James Gunn, and I know what his style is, and I know that I will be getting that, and not another studio hacked project. So yeah, I'm excited to see this. I'm not at all worried about Superman being in the ICU. What do you guys think?
I was
Yeah,
thinking about it. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
uh, I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, you said that you didn't think it would be in the movie, and it's like now if they don't reference it or if it's not in the movie, we're gonna get release the gun cut
That's true.
because then there's gonna be a scene that he's referenced that's not in there. But I don't know. I think something like that is exactly the way you were saying it. It works good in a comic book because I think if we see if they pull a Shazam, because I don't think Henry Cavill has filmed anything for this, definitely. But I don't want another like headless Superman cameo,
Yeah.
but he's in the hospital. Like that would just, because I mean, it just makes no sense. And we've had such a grounded, you know, DCEU mostly up to this point in terms of the powers of the heroes and sticking to their like
Mhm.
abilities and things. And I just feel like that would be just kind of weird.
Yeah.
I don't know, like
Especially if we actually see the scene.
if we see the scene, I will audibly gasp in the theater. I'll
Right.
be honest with you. That's he can just make a
Yeah.
reference. I feel like that would be best. And it feels weird to me that James Gunn. I'm a fan of his movies. But I feel like it was weird for him to phrase it that way. I feel like he could have said, "Oh, Bloodsport's in prison for just firing at Superman," or you know I don't know if he had to go the entire way of like, oh, he literally
Yeah.
put him in the hospital.
That's why I think he's kind of
There,
trolling there.
yeah, maybe you're right, and I'm hoping that that's true because if we find out in the movie there's a piece of paper, maybe it's like like in the first movie where we saw each character's like rap sheet and the things that they had done to go to prison and things. Maybe if it says like in prison for shooting Superman, I'd be fine with that. You know, I just think we could leave out the he's in the hospital, because that literally, how would you even explain that?
Right. And his face and his DNA.
I think there's a really good chance of a joke. Like, so say you have Bloodsport, and is it Bloodsport or Bloodshot? Bloodsport. Thinking of Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel's masterpiece of superhero. Yeah. But no, I think there's a good joke. Like you have the Suicide Squad together, and they're all telling each other, well, "What are you in for?" And you got Bloodsport saying, "Oh, I shot Superman, put him in the ICU," and then it cuts to the scene where he shot Superman, but it had no effect on him whatsoever, and Superman just captures him.
That would be cool.
I think there's a funny joke he could do there.
You're a genius, actually. That would make sense. He's just bragging and talking it up, and then we see the scene, and he shoots Superman, and we get a look like in the beginning of BVS. Superman just looks up like not impressed, like not having it.
Yeah. No, but I don't think we will see. Look, it's a shame because we're in 2021 now, and Shazam came out in 2018. And even Justice League in 2017, they still didn't have a contract agreement with Henry Cavill. And here we are 4 years later, and there's still no contract agreement with Henry Cavill. So for him to appear in this as a cameo is very unlikely unless he signs a deal in the next, we're in June now, unless he signs a deal in the next month and James Gunn can shoot a tiny cameo with him, then he's probably not in this movie. And the best scenario that we can get, my prediction is that we'll see the scene and we'll see like we'll see Superman flying, and like the camera will be behind Superman, and you see like his feet and the cape, and then you have Bloodsport in kind of the distance in front of Superman and his kind of reaction to seeing Superman, something like that. That's the best I think we're going to get. It's a shame because Henry, like, if it was Marvel, Robert Downey Jr. would show up, Chris Evans would show up, Chris Hemsworth would show up, because their universe is very much cemented. But here, I don't see Henry Cavill showing up, and I'm a little bit worried for the Suicide Squad movie because commercially, the first one, say what you want about the movie, it was a success, but the marketing campaign was one of the best of any of the DC movies, because you had Jared Leto, Harley Quinn, you had Batman's in this as well, the chase sequence there, Will Smith, who was he's still a big star. I don't care what anyone says. Look at Aladdin, that made $1 billion with no kind of A-list actors, only him and Guy Ritchie directing. So Will Smith was a big ploy for that movie as well. He's missing. Ben Affleck's Batman won't be in this movie unless he's a stunt double or something like that. We're probably not going to see that in the marketing. There's no Henry Cavill Superman. The first one had Flash as well. Word of mouth for the first one was pretty good. I went to go see it opening night. But what was the movie like? Oh, Batman was in it. Flash was in it. Stuff like that. It really adds to it. So, and plus, we see Mark Miller with Jupiter's Legacy. His old comments, his old tweets came back to haunt him big time there, because there's trolls, there's people who don't like you as a person. But if you slip up and say one bad thing about something that they love, like a Batman v Superman, those people are waiting in the wings to come back and get you. James Gunn was a Marvel director. He's now with DC. And this is his first movie since the controversy. Yeah. So that could come back to hit this movie hard. And plus, we're in a pandemic. So word of mouth for this movie could be poor. Online social media buzz could be poor because of his old tweets. So I think this is a big... I think if this was a Marvel movie, I'd be way more confident, because you put the Marvel tag on it, people are automatically going to say it. Oh, Marvel. You don't have to have any of Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, or Thor in the marketing whatsoever. You just need Marvel there, and people know it's probably going to be a good time. So, yeah, this movie, I think, faces an uphill battle. It's
they
also
do have Margot Robbie, though.
Same day. True, Margot
Robbie
has to do building up.
A lot of heavy lifting, because even she was kind of the star of the first movie, and she was a big, sell for that movie because of how amazing her performance was. Everyone was buzzing about her character. So Harley Quinn is very popular from the first movie, from the animated series, and Birds of Prey. So now everyone will definitely be looking forward to watching her in this and see what James Gunn's Harley Quinn is like. So I think Margot Robbie and James Gunn both have a lot of heavy lifting to do in this movie.
Well, and the original Suicide Squad ended up having controversy during the press tour, because everything came out about Jared Leto's actions behind the scenes, supposedly. So I mean, both films kind of had this like little bit of the new one's going to, but like have this little bit of an air that's above them.
Yeah.
During the press tour, which I'm sure now that we're getting a little safer pandemic wise, I'm sure they'll do like a press tour, like a more proper like actual press tour. And I just hope that none of that, because I don't want any director to fail or have a bad movie. I want everybody to do well and movies to do good. But I do think that like with Margot Robbie being in this, she did everybody, even people that had problems with Birds of Prey still really said that her performance in that movie was fantastic. She was a producer on it. And I think that people that are fans of the original Suicide Squad, myself included, are going to be interested to see the characters that they brought over from the original, such as Rick Flag and Boomerang.
Amanda Waller. He's a big
Amanda
one.
Waller, yeah, and I am exactly, yeah, and I'm curious to see if they're going to, how much they're going to carry over their continuity from, like, if they're going to make any direct references to the first mission that they went on. I know we saw some promotional material that was talking about, I believe it was Enchantress in some promotional material. It was talking about it. So I just wonder, how much of a connective thread these two movies are going to have. Because then, if it does, I think you're going to get all the people that are fans of the original to go. And then if it's a new, fresh take with James Gunn, you're going to get all that crowd in there too. So I think if they play this right, I think they could really have a good showing out for this.
Yeah, you bring up another good point about the fans. I think James Gunn had it kind of easy with the Marvel fandom because, everything is consistent over there, and so there's no divisions between fans, and most fans like everything MCU. So there's no major divisions among the fans, right? So DC is another story, and here there are different types of fans: the Snyder fans, the comic book fans, the general audience, the new DC fans. So there's a lot of division here. So James Gunn will have to. He's definitely seeing all that on Twitter, and he's very well aware of this. And he also understands why the division is there, and he understands the Restore the Snyderverse and all that stuff. He clearly understands that, and he has tweeted about this before. So it's not something new to him. So I bet he will, after the movie comes out, I bet he will have a taste of what DC fandom is like.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point as well, because I think the directors are more entwined with what the fans say and do online than, say, Warner Brothers. I think the directors get the fans.
James Gunn surely is, because he's always on Twitter.
Yeah, and even David Sandberg and Andy Muschietti, these guys know what's going on at Warner Brothers with Snyder. So they're very careful on what they put into the movie. Go back to Shazam 1. There's a lot of Batman v Superman references in it for a reason, and and it didn't go completely away from it. You look at Andy Muschietti right now. Like, I don't think these guys would be foolish to listen to every single thing that Warner Brothers tells them about retconning the Snyderverse and stuff like that, because they know themselves that's not going to work. They're going to piss off a lot of people, and that's going to affect their movie badly. So I don't think that the Flash movie or Suicide Squad with James Gunn or Shazam 2, I don't think they're going to be completely oblivious to the Snyderverse or the characters or even the first Suicide Squad and stuff like that, because for me that's kind of that's self-sabotage, because you're going to piss off a lot of fans, and I'm a fan of this first Suicide Squad movie, and I don't necessarily think this one's a reboot. I don't look at it as a reboot. I just look at a continuation of the characters. Toby Emmerich said it was a reboot, but that guy doesn't have a clue about DC Universe right now. He just doesn't have a clue whatsoever. So I think there will be slight references to the first Suicide Squad, and it doesn't have to say, "Oh, do you remember in the first movie we met Flash, or I met the Flash?" It doesn't have to go to that level. It just has to say, we've been on this team before. That's a cool reference. That's all
Gunn
you
also
need.
said,
a sequel. You don't have to talk about everything that happened in the first one.
Gunn also said that you don't have to watch the first one to understand this one. So it probably isn't that much connected, but it doesn't also have to be oh, what is the Suicide Squad? This is blah, blah, blah. And, like we have never heard that before. So it's probably not.
I think that's a good in-between. I think that's a good good middle ground to lay. So you get stuff for fans of the original, but you're not like every 5 seconds going, "Hey, remember when like this happened?" Exactly what you were saying, John. Because then it gets to be like, okay, yeah, we get it. There was a movie before this one. We gotcha.
Yeah.
And remember, James Gunn has an ego. He's a $1 billion director. He's not looking at this like, oh, I'm making a sequel to David Ayer's movie. Like, that's why he's saying you don't need to see the first one, because he made his own Suicide Squad movie with some characters that were in the first one. So, like, there's a lot of egos there, even though they won't say it and stuff, and they probably are friends and they do like each other. But of course, they want to beat each other. James Gunn would love nothing more to get a bigger box office or a bigger critical reception than the first one, because he wants to make it his own. So he's not going to say, "Yeah, this is me making a sequel to David Ayer's film." He's making his own Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad movie, and that's why you don't have to see the first one, because I made my own movie.
Absolutely. Aaron, what do you think of the image, the movie, and are you excited for it? Did you like the trailers?
Yeah, I actually liked I think I was in agreement with most people where I liked the second one that was shown at the theatrical trailer that played before the movies more than the first one. The first one reminded me a little bit too much of Guardians of the Galaxy, which I'm hoping this has its own identity rather than that. Which I love Guardians, but like I do think that the Suicide Squad's a bit of a different beast to tackle, whereas the Guardians are obviously reluctant heroes, and the Suicide Squad members are villains that just so happen to be doing something good one or two times. Like, but I like the way it looks, and I like I like that Gunn is playing into a little more like of the comic book style of it, where whereas the first one was almost like a tactical kind of film, especially with the way David Ayer originally wanted it, where it was a lot more like Black Hawk Down or something, where these guys are trapped in a place and they've got to get their way out of there, like more of a war film. Whereas this seems more like a traditional comic book movie, which is fine, and I like both. And I think having the villain in this one be a giant starfish is definitely setting up expectations, because you're like, okay, this is not we're not in like the same kind of like tonal universe as the first. Yeah, of course he would make Starro the villain, like like just as he made Ego the villain in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. This giant like what is happening? He's just a big planet, like, and is just a big starfish. So, and I think that the villain of it is going to factor in much less than we think it is. Like, the villain's just going to end up being this big thing that they can fight in the end. But I think the real tension and stuff of the movie is going to come from the characters. They're going to be sort of the real antagonists of the film. And then the big bad is just exactly what it is, like a big bad.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'm excited. I'm definitely excited, and I will definitely be checking it out when it comes out.
What do you think?
Also, I want to.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that Anne made a good point about it's not called Suicide Squad 2 for a reason. That kind of backs up what I was saying. But I just kind of want to address what Lion23 City said in the chat as well. And thanks for the comment. He goes, Snyder fans really need to give up and leave. It's a very stressful job for every director to be ahead of those crazy fans trying to sabotage their movies. Snyderverse is done for good. Now, I just want to say, I'll be respectful to your comment, but the three of us are Zack Snyder fans here. And as I said, I've watched Stargirl, I've watched Superman Lois, I'm excited for Titans, I'm excited for the Suicide Squad movie, I'm excited for the Batman movie. KC is a Snyderverse fan. I know he's not overly excited for the Flash movie, but he's still going to watch it. He watches other shows in the DC world that's not Snyder's. Aaron is the same. See, we're a fan of Snyder, but we watch the other things as well. We're not like, oh, it's not Zack Snyder, we won't watch it. We're a fan of DC characters. And it's not a stressful job, I don't think, for the directors, because we're consumers. I go to the cinema to pay to go see Wonder Woman 1994. I want to be entertained. I want to enjoy myself. And I have a right to talk about the movie. And I have a right to tell Warner Brothers, hey, if you make this movie, I'm going to give you money for it. And that's what happened with the Snyder Cut, And the Blu-ray sales are pretty high. The digital downloads are pretty high because there was a fan base. There was people that said, we will buy this if you make it, if you put it out there. And it's the same if the Snyderverse was to be restored. But it's not me sitting here saying, "Oh, I don't like the Suicide Squad because Zack Snyder's not
Making it.
a
Yeah.
producer. He didn't create the movie or stuff like that." I'm looking forward to these movies. Yes, I would love the 5-story arc to happen that Zack Snyder had planned, and it might not happen. But if it doesn't happen, I'm happy enough watching Aquaman 2 with Jason Momoa because it was a Zack Snyder casting, or a Wonder Woman 3 with a new direction, or a Flash movie to see what they do. I'm excited, but I'm also, why not? Why can't we have a Justice League 2 when it was probably one of the biggest movies of this year, Justice League on streaming and stuff like that? So look, I'm a Snyder fan, and I understand what you're saying because there's a lot of toxic people out there, and I get shit as well for liking some of the Flash images that are coming out and being excited for the Flash images. I get people coming at me, but I don't really care because at the end of the day, I'm the one paying. I'm the one that's my happiness. I want to watch these movies. So, do you guys have anything to add on that?
I'm with you there, man. I'm a fan of all of it, and I love Zach, and I love his movies, and I I consider myself a huge supporter of Restore the Snyderverse. But the thing is there's always going to be other films that are not set within that universe, whether the Snyderverse continued or not. They were planning on doing the Black Label DC movies years and years ago, with Joker, and now I guess we're getting the sequel to Joker. But they've been planning this for a long time, and whether Zach continued or not, it was always going to be a thing. And I'm happy. I like having a lot to choose from. Like, it's never a bad thing to go to the movies a bunch. It's really not.
Yeah.
And if they end up restoring the Snyderverse and putting it on HBO Max, day one I'm there. And you know what I'll do? I'll get up in the morning and watch one of whatever Zach makes, and then I'll go to the theater that evening and see whatever the DCU's got going. Like, it doesn't have to be one way or the other, and you can enjoy both and still be mad at things that happened with WB. It's possible.
Yeah, and also we are getting a James Gunn DC movie while he is also making a Marvel movie next. So that is in itself is very very cool. And he said recently that he had talks with DC about doing a possible crossover between Marvel and DC characters in the future, which I'm so glad that at least those talks did happen. This is probably the closest we ever got to that actually happening, because every time it actually was just a fan theory to let it happen, but I never thought that would ever happen because the corporate IP stuff and all that. But he at least had the talks there, so this is kind of positive in that direction. So I don't know, I just think that, okay, so he followed up with maybe not you, but let's not pretend like a lot of Snyder fans are behaving like assholes with these directors. Listen, I think a lot of fans are very passionate, and they take it out on the wrong people the wrong way, and that happens in almost every fandom. Every fandom has toxic people. I can tell you, like, objectively, I can tell you, I know for a fact that hundreds and thousands of people who are Zack Snyder fans don't behave that way, and they are what you encounter online, that is just the loud minority. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but that's true. And even we don't like that, and we do not condone that behavior. So when you say Snyder fans, there are a lot of fans who just like Snyder movies, and they just like James Gunn movies the same. So it's kind of weird to me when people say that Snyder fans just should go away. Why should we go away? Like, we just like one director and their movies, and we also enjoy other movies. So I don't think it's really that big of a deal. If you focus on just looking for Snyder fans and what they're saying, you'll always find someone saying shit. And that's the same with every hater that hates James Gunn, or people that hate Marvel, people that hate Star Wars, or like Zach said. Okay, I won't repeat that, but Zach said something similar about Star Wars fans, and Star Wars fans are actually pretty toxic, and you won't even find that bad of a bunch in Snyder fans. So just targeting one side of the fan base, it's never a good thing. I think you should just focus on what's positive and what's good, and that will actually help you.
Yeah, and like a negative comment sticks out like a sore thumb. Like I was listening to a podcast today where this kind of sports psychologist, like negative thinking is actually more powerful than positive thinking, because I think it overtakes it's much strong, because if you kept saying negative things out the whole time, like about something, or something bad's gonna happen, it probably will happen to you, and that's what he's done a study on it before. It's like if you see 1,000 good comments about the Flash movie, but you see one person who's saying "F this shit, I want the Snyderverse," that's going to stay with you. It's going to stay in your mind, because it's very out there and stuff like that. But like, I love Quentin Tarantino, but there's a reason why Quentin Tarantino only makes a movie every 4 years. You know, that's what's special about when Quentin Tarantino has a new movie out. Like if every single week there was a Quentin Tarantino movie out, the feel of it would be gone, the energy would be gone. You just wouldn't be excited about it. I love Zack Snyder's DC movies, his comic book movies. But if every single comic book movie came out with a Zack Snyder movie, then what makes a Zack Snyder movie great wouldn't be great anymore.
Exactly.
So we wouldn't get a film like, some people love Ant-Man, but Zack Snyder would never make Ant-Man that way. Some people love Captain Marvel maybe, or the Spider-Man movies. We would never get a movie that way. So like I'm a comic book movie fan. I'm a film fan, and I love seeing these different types of films. I watch indie films all the time on streaming services of directors I never heard of before. And I guarantee you, Zack Snyder or Quentin Tarantino could never make a movie like those people, because they're not those people. So I just think
Zack Snyder would never put Starro in a Justice League movie.
Well, and it's funny because Zack himself has said, like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for the Batman," and I'm interested to see what these people are doing. I mean, he even set up, with the Flash movie, he even set up the whole thing with like the suit changing. He did that on purpose.
Yes.
He gave Barry a experimental suits, and he even said himself, he was like, "Yeah, that's so the next whoever directs the Flash movie can do whatever they want with it. They can make a brand new suit." And
he said
I think that a lot
it
of people
won't be
forget
fair to that director to just create a suit.
Exactly. Zack is all on board with like seeing other people's work, and I'm sure he likes getting a break from things, from stuff sometimes, and getting to see somebody else's take on stuff. So I think people just need to like stop focusing, like you said, on the negative, and it's because negative gets clicks and negative gets attention, and nobody wants to, nobody has fun sitting around a lot of the times reading nice comments. They want to go to the hidden replies on Twitter and look at terrible things. And I think we just need to like focus on stuff, and we can be excited for the Flash and Batman and Suicide Squad, but also love what Zack does in the Snyderverse.
Yeah, that's also basically what Restore the Snyderverse means. Most people, when they say Restore the Snyderverse, they don't mean that put Zack in charge of every movie ever in the DC. They just mean that also make Zack Snyder movies, They don't mean that cancel Birds of Prey 2 or cancel Aquaman 2 or, fire James Gunn and James Wan. Everything should be Snyder directed. That's not what Restore the Snyderverse means. It just means that in addition to these movies, also make Snyder movies. So
yeah, and we're not having a go at the comment from Lion 23 City, because from his or her perspective, they could have been mistreated by somebody who's a diehard Snyder fan and put them down because they're excited for other movies or something like that. So from their perspective, they could have got a lot of negative comments from people like that. And that's understandable about how they think about that. I've had different movies before where someone
we know firsthand how exhausting it is, and we are Snyder fans.
Yeah, it is exhausting. Yes,
well, and all it takes is somebody coming on a show like this, and they think that, and then they meet people like how we're talking right now, and we're open and we're talking about everything that we enjoy, and it just takes one good impression to get rid of the bad.
Yeah, exactly. And if you come and follow any of us on Twitter, you'll see us talking about Zack Snyder, but you'll also see us talking about Stargirl or Titans or Superman Lois or Jupiter's Legacy, all these different types of superhero content, and movies. So it's not just, it's we're fans at the end of the day. We just want to watch good stuff. But thanks.